So, Stu, I think we have to start with the audio of Liz Cheney, in her speech last night. Unfortunately, it wasn't a victory speech, but she's going to go on. Listen, here she is.
The great and original champion of our party, Abraham Lincoln, was defeated in elections for the Senate and the House before he won the most important election of all. Lincoln ultimately prevailed, he saved our Union, and he defined our obligation as Americans for all of history.
I think she just compared herself to Abraham Lincoln. I'm not sure what her point was there other than, and I'm like Abraham Lincoln, and so I'm launching my presidential campaign. I mean, I don't know what she was doing. And, in all honesty, she has a lot in Abraham Lincoln. Imagine Abraham Lincoln without the beard. Now, Cheney. You see it? You see it?
Not particularly, no. I can't say that I do, no.
You're right. That's mean. It's just the wart. That is the same. But anyway, so I'm kind of sad, Stu. We don't have old Liz Cheney to kick around anymore. Darn it.
Yeah, it was an interesting approach and one of the strangest elections probably of all time. As we kind of noted a little bit yesterday, Liz Cheney voted for Donald Trump in 2020. People forget this. She voted for Donald Trump in 2020. She was then obviously turned against him and said the stuff that he did after the election she didn't like, but then survived a Republican leadership vote after all of this, and then still kept talking about it, and then eventually was thrown out of leadership and has become the enemy and was defeated handily by an opponent who, Glenn, was so anti-Trump in 2016 that she was among the people organizing the overturning of the primary on the convention floor in 2016 to get Ted Cruz to be the candidate instead of Trump. And she's come so far the other way that she's now the pro-Trump candidate, and Cheney, who voted for Trump in 2020, is now the anti-Trump candidate and lost by 40 points.
It is like all of our beds are on the edge of a wormhole. And every day we get out of bed, we put our feet on the floor, and we just it's like a water slide. Shoom! We're into another America that is kind of like the one we were in yesterday.
Yeah.
I can't keep track of it.
It's so weird. And, so the final was 66-29, basically, about what I think people expected going into this. There were some crossover votes from Democrats, but again, not enough of them in Wyoming to make any particular difference.
Well,
and so it was a blowout. Cheney is already on to her next thing. As we said yesterday, you could tell it was a blowout because of the way the media was covering it. It was talking about how she's got more to her than this. This is just one bump in the road of a longer journey. And she leaked this to every single reporter in the mainstream media to tell that, look, this isn't a big deal. She doesn't care about this. It's the next thing that's the big deal.
I did think it was a little much when she started singing "My Heart Will Go On."
Well, it's true. She is trying to make herself into this. This is a martyr type of period here for her, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's a strange one. I was talking to someone who follows politics, but not like super closely. And he's just like, look, I don't know anything about Liz Cheney other than she doesn't like Trump. And it's like, this is her problem here. It's not that you can't disagree with Trump. It's not like you can't have your own opinion. But when you dedicate your entire life to be obsessed with one individual, you're going to be defined as to how people in your state feel about that individual. And when it comes to Donald Trump, people in Wyoming like him quite a bit.
Yeah. Here's the amazing thing is my problem with her is, like you said, she was all in 2020. Okay? She was all in 2020. And then he does his thing on January 6th, which he didn't cause. He didn't do anything. But I didn't like the way he acted on January 6th. I thought, hey, Mr. President, get on TV right now and say stop.
Mm-hmm.
And on the day I was really, really pissed. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then I kind of got over it. You know what I mean? He wasn't responsible. So I kind of went, I didn't like that, but I'm not going to dedicate my life to destroying him because that's kind of a, I don't know, psychotic break. It might be a little manic in its approach to life. It's like going someplace where you've had, good meals and you've recommended the place, and then you have one meal that's cold and you set out to destroy it. I want their license revoked. I want them out of business. I want to burn their business down, and I want to piss on their ashes. That's really what it's like.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, look, I think we've certainly asked for this over the years. Politicians who believe in something that's not popular to stand up for it. I have no problem embracing that general vibe, and I, a lot of people are saying, I don't know. I think she genuinely seems to believe this now. I don't know what. It's hard to understand that from someone who voted for the guy, right? Like, it's one thing if you really thought he was a terrible president for 4 years. And then you say, okay, this is pushing me over the edge. I have to stop him in any way possible. You're someone who wanted 4 more years of this guy, right? Up until the actual election, right?
No, I don't think she is. I think she is someone who held her nose and said all the right things, and at the first opportunity to knife him, she did. I really, you cannot make it's psychotic, Stu. Yeah, that's a psychotic swing. It really is.
It really is. But it was a big event, right? I mean, there's certainly it did change some people's minds, I suppose. But I mean, I think overall, when you look at it, it's like, I don't think she did this because she thought it was going to help her win this election. I think she had to have known going into this would have made her political life more difficult. So if she really believes it, let her go out and do this. But along with that comes the consequences from voters, and voters don't agree with you. The Republican voters in Wyoming think what you're doing is, completely wrong, and they sent a massive message. The turnout was huge yesterday.
But I think, Stu, think of this strategically. I think a humiliating and devastating loss puts you right where you need to be to launch a presidential campaign. Don't you think? Don't you think?
Let me ask Beto O'Rourke. Hold on one second. I'll get him on the phone.
I know. Beto's like, there's somebody out there who gets it.
Hold on, Stacey Abrams. She's on line too. No, it's true. The bigger thing here is, what is the constituency for a Liz Cheney presidency? She basically runs the state of Wyoming, and her family runs the state of Wyoming, and she got 29% of the vote there. So what is the constituency other than the possibility of her running as an independent candidate to, shave votes from Donald Trump and give the presidency to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom or whoever else is running? I mean, if that's the strategy, which I don't see what the alternative is there. I don't think there's any other path for her to make an impact. That's a strategy that does not support someone who does have a relatively conservative voting record over her career.
She's going to be brave, and she's going to take that stage with Donald Trump. And as he's there,
that's the shtick.
She's going to be the one that takes him on, and she will last all of about 45 seconds. Okay? He will pummel her.
Oh, that'll be ugly.
He's done it to every single person. He'll pummel her. And then she'll really be set up for a presidential run.
I mean, look, there's no audience for this. Is not how you would win a primary. There's no one that's going to come in to the Republican primary and take a stance like Liz Cheney is taking and win. You can take a stance and say, hey, I'm different than Donald Trump in these ways. I don't like the way he did X, Y, and Z. But to come in and just say, this man is Satan is not, there's no way to win a primary doing that.
No. So here's where I think I could have tolerated. And maybe the people of Wyoming would have as well. I don't know. I don't live in Wyoming. But I think if you were with Donald Trump and then something happened on, January 6th, and you're like, okay, that was really bad. You'd handle it like everybody that I know who was a Donald Trump supporter or is a Donald Trump supporter. They were really angry that day, and now they're to the point of, I didn't like how he handled January 6th. I just don't like it. It really bothered me, and it still bothers me. But, it's Donald Trump, and he's going to do what he does. And, while that bothers me, he either is the candidate or isn't the candidate for me. And if they would have said, look, I was for Donald Trump. I was with him the whole time. And I love him, just loved him. But then instead of going psycho over it, I decided just to come out and say, guys, I'm not sure if he is the guy for the next election. He was great in the time, but he may not be the right guy because, he's stirs it up every time, and we need somebody a little more calm than Donald Trump. And, he stirs it up. And I don't know, but it should be left up to the people. Is this the best way to defeat this socialist Marxism? It might be, but I think maybe Ron DeSantis would be better. Okay, I think those conversations are happening, but those conversations are not. I really, really liked him. Now he's got to be destroyed.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's interesting because, obviously we do have a lot of guests that come on this show, on Stu Does America. I go on other podcasts all the time. And one of I think the most, I'm always interested to ask guests and people who are other hosts, commentators in the conservative world, who do you want? Who do you want? And I'm mostly interested to ask people who are Trump supporters, people who love Donald Trump, who were with him the whole time, who would walk through a wall of fire to vote for this guy in 2020. What do you want in 2024? Who would you prefer? Do you want Trump to run again? Do you want it to be someone like DeSantis? And all of these people that I've asked have been, if Trump is the nominee, I'm 100% on board, right? Like they're totally on that realm. But I would say the answers have been about 50-50. About 50% want Trump to run, that he's the guy, he's the only guy for this time period. About 50% are just like, look, I love Trump. He's the best. If he's the one nominee, great, fine, I'm fine with it. But like, honestly, if I had a preference, I'd rather have someone like DeSantis because there's too much baggage already built into that package. Yeah.
And
so
it's not a slam.
That's a real debate going on.
It's not a slam on Donald Trump. Yeah. And I don't know the people like Liz Cheney. I do know people. I mean, I was here in Utah. I'm in Salt Lake City. I did a speech last night on ESG. I'll tell you about that. There's some ESG news today. But I'm here, and I talked to some real heavy Republican heavy hitters, and they all said the same thing. They were all like, "Look, I'm all in. I'd even raise money for Donald Trump, and I have, and I will. But if he would not run, I think that might be a better path because the temperature would be lowered. And I just wish we could lower the temperature on things." And then they always followed it up with, "But if he runs, I'm 100% in." It's this weird thing that the Liz Cheney thing doesn't exist.
Liz,
I really don't think it exists.
I mean, it's probably Lynn too. I think they have the same feelings on the issue, but I think you're talking about Liz.
Yeah, but you don't think that Dick has the same feelings, do you?
I do believe he got a commercial for her on that front. I know, it's shocking. It's interesting too. You have basically the last two eras of Republican politics on the ballot last night, in a way, right? With Liz Cheney kind of continuing the Bush-Cheney vibe, and then Sarah Palin, who kind of came up during that Tea Party era, and sort of converted more to maybe a more MAGA character, if you want to separate those two movements. But still, an interesting thing last night. And she, the way the Alaska election works, we're not going to know who wins that for a while. But it's kind of interesting to see.
She
both
is
of those
going to be on the ballot.
day.
Yeah.
Well,
here's the most likely. Here's the last word. What was at stake last night was, are we going to go back to the Bush kind of Republicans? Are we going to stick with the tried and true, gosh, we're going to compromise and work together on this and we'll always lose every compromise? Or are we charting a new course? And I think most voters last night, at least in Wyoming, were like, I don't want this anymore. I'm tired of the kind of George Bush approach to globalism and America.